I've been looking forward to this time now for the man who wants to sink both the Tories and Labour and swipe the keys for number 10 in a political revolution. Reform UK leader Richard Tice is enjoying huge success in the polls as his party of common sense continues its surge in popularity. But perhaps the biggest political issue of all right now is the Channel migrant crisis. Taxpayers are forking out more than £500,000 a day, keeping 5,000 empty hotel beds reserved for migrants as a so-called buffer, which is more than the latest levelling up fund to help left-behind regions in the UK to find prosperity. It's also 3 times the budget to crack homelessness of British citizens. Richard Tice, the small boats saga is costing us £2 billion a year. Will we ever solve this crisis?
The truth is, Mark, it's actually costing 3 or 4 times that. We're not being told the truth about this. But let's be very, very clear. You know, you've seen the Lords reject the migration bill. You've seen the Court of Appeal reject Rwanda. The reality is the boats will keep coming. Nothing will stop the boats until we do what Australia did, and we're the only political party. Reform UK's plan, we've got a 6-point plan, but it revolves around the fundamental, kindest, most compassionate thing to do, which is to pick people up safely out of the boats and take them back to France. And the moment you do that, this vile trade stops. It stops within a fortnight. I promise you, if I was in charge, this thing stops in a fortnight. And here's the other point. If proper leadership was shown by people in the EU, if you do the same thing in the Mediterranean with Tunisia and North Africa, that stops as well, and people stop dying. That's why it's the kind thing to do, it's the compassionate thing to do, and it's the financially smart thing to do.
Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman, they're not stupid people. They want to be re-elected next year. Rishi Sunak wants to remain Prime Minister. If that solution worked, he would do it. Why isn't he doing it?
Because I'm afraid he is, on this issue, he's just lacking in courage, lacking in leadership. I'm not saying he's stupid, but he is being politically incredibly naive. Look, Australia got a load of flack from all the usual international suspects. Yeah. But guess what? The boats stopped coming. It worked. I tell you what, you know, do what we know works. That's the one country that has sorted out this problem. So why don't we copy their issue? And here's the thing. I've read the international treaties. Under existing international laws, you can do what I have suggested. You can safely pick up and take back to the point of departure.
So you don't think we could be accused of breaking the law and face the mother of all court cases?
I've read the rules. I can tell you I would get some decent lawyers who believe in the cause of sovereign borders, right, secure borders, and we would say, under the existing international treaties, we are within the law. Yes, the French are going to be a bit grumpy for a couple of weeks.
Can you return people without the support of the French?
You can, under existing...
Without conducting a war with Emmanuel Macron?
I promise you, under existing international treaties, right, the Safety of Life at Sea Act, 1974, the UN Convention Law of Sea Act, 1980, right, you can do this. I've read it.
Are you
I know
sure
it's right.
This isn't snake oil? Because many people will say, of course, Richard Tice will say that. He's never going to become Prime Minister, but he's going to throw us some red meat. He said 2 weeks to stop the boats.
If this carries on, the single slogan of 3 words in the election next, whenever it is, will be stop the boats, like it was 10 years ago in Australia. And guess what? The party that says we will stop the boats won the election. And we're the only party with a plan that will stop the boats.
I'm willing to believe that is the case. You're a man of conviction. You're a man of your word. I've known you for a long time. But your efforts and your success at Reform UK, which is undoubted, and I think you're going to have massive momentum next year. I'm sick of emails about how great you are, by the way, coming in when I'm on air. So you've got your fan base, the people who feel politically homeless, like your party. But you're going to take votes off the Tories. You're going to hand the keys to number 10 to Keir Starmer. The lesser of 2 evils would be Rishi Sunak.
Mark, you
for another 5 years.
You fall into the same trap as Dan Wootton. Bless him. I hope he's having a lovely time. But you think there's any difference between the two? There's not. They're both socialists. They're different sides of the same socialist coin. If you want high taxes, nanny state, daft regulation and low growth and wasteful government spending, be my guest, vote socialism. If you want low taxes, high growth, smart regulation and secure borders, controlled immigration, vote Reform UK.
However, can you sleep at night knowing that you might have sent Keir Starmer to number 10?
I sleep extremely well every single night.
Surely Keir Starmer would be far worse than Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak's been a disaster, Mark.
You call Sunak like a socialist.
catastrophe.
But,
His
Richard,
5 pledges are going nowhere. He's half the year through. Well, what one of those pledges is he going to achieve by the end of this year? Tell me.
Well, he's struggling potentially.
Exactly.
If
He's a
lucky,
disaster.
He won't stop the boats.
Right?
The waiting list looks like a problem.
Right? The debt's going up. Inflation's not coming down. He's a disaster. Keir Starmer will also be bad for the country. He will try and take us.
Worse, surely.
He will try and take us even closer to the EU than some of the Tories.
This is what I need
senior
to press
people
you
we're
on.
hearing about.
You want a reform UK government. You want to be Prime Minister, and more power to you. And I think that could be an election or two away, because you're very youthful and you look after yourself, so you've got time. But the issue is the next election.
You cannot reward failure, Mark, with incumbency.
But you
have to punish incompetence and failure.
Sure, but you risk for that, right? The Pyrrhic
It's
victory.
not a risk.
The Pyrrhic victory of Keir Starmer at number 10, and then you're like, fantastic, we've given the Tories bloody nose. This is a man who campaigned for Jeremy Corbyn, the ultra-socialist, to become Prime Minister. He campaigned to reverse Brexit.
But Sunak's an ultra-socialist. He wants higher taxes. He wants more government spending. He wants more regulations. He's not a Conservative. He's not a Thatcherite. He's a socialist.
Is it in the national interest for Britain?
It is in the national interest to get rid of socialism, Mark. Full stop.
All right, but you think we need a Labour government in between until we get rid of it?
I just want to get rid of socialism, which means get rid of the main two parties, because they are not good for this country. Look at the state we're in, Mark. The place is broken, and everybody knows it. And we're the only people with a vision to make Britain great again.
What's going to move the dial for you next year? Because the risk is that our first-past-the-post system will consign you to the sidelines. How do you get seats? Because that's what you need.
We stand everywhere.
Popular vote's a waste of time. Who cares?
We stand everywhere.
That's great for dinner parties.
Yeah, look, we stand everywhere, and the point is we give the great British population a different democratic choice. We all know first-past-the-post is difficult. That's why we need to move to proportional representation. And actually many, many people, even in the Labour Party, realise that is the fairer system. Above all, we don't share first-past-the-post in great company. The only other country that I'm told has it in Western Europe, Belarus, for heaven's sake. You know, so that's not great company. It hasn't led to stable government. It hasn't led to good government. If we had PR, we'd have an extra 10% of the electorate would cast their vote. That's 3 million more people involved in democracy.
When you talk very excitingly about stopping the votes within 2 weeks, which is an almost Trumpian timeline, when you say that, again,
put me in charge and I'll do it.
I'll take your word. But if you're in a proportional system, you'll never be in charge, because you'd have to have probably support from left-leaning parties, and you'd need the Lib Dems on board and a couple of SNP. You'd never get anything done.
Under PR, look at what Maloney's achieved, from 4% to 27% in just 4 years. She's Prime Minister, and she is helping Italy be great again. She is making action. She's getting stuff done. And, you know, she's a sensible, socially conservative, family-minded person.
Richard Tice, only a few seconds. Should the BBC name and shame their
No, you're
alleged
completely
star?
wrong on this, Mark. Of course not. We know that MPs have told terrible mistruths within the House of Commons, even against your fellow presenter, Nigel Farage, that Chris Bryan did. We know that Tom Watson sold terrible things that led to real mistruths. And guess what? Even if they did name and shame, right, no one else can outside Parliament. So all you've done is put the name out there, but whoever that presenter is, they are innocent until proven guilty.
Straight answer to a straight question. Richard, we'll catch up again soon. My thanks to the leader of Reform UK, never boring, Richard Tice.